Right, good morning everyone. Sorry about the slowness of start, but I had to work my way through the snow on my commute down to my shed. Um, we won't say it was the wrong kind of leaves on the track or anything like that. No, it was just running a bit late. Right, this morning we're looking at Luke 14:25 on to the end of 14. And it brings up some passages we've looked at before, some quotes we've looked at before in other books, which will make this hopefully a good discussion this morning. So I need one person to pray and one person to read.
I'll read if you like.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. And Carolyn will pray. Brilliant. Go for it, Carolyn.
Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the snow. Thank you for all the blessings that we have, our families, our homes, and Lord, we just ask for your strength today, and we thank you for your word, and for revealing more about you, and just enjoying talking about the way that you've taught your apostles and us, Lord, in the world, through your wisdom and your love. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Carolyn. Over to you, Jenny.
The cost of being a disciple. Large crowds were travelling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will you not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if it has enough money to complete it? If he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? Is he not able? If he's not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure heap. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear."
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Carolyn. David, your hand's up immediately. Yeah, go for it.
I always used to have this problem with the hate, where it says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father," but looking up in the Blue Letter Bible, hate is something called missio, which is actually to love less. It's not about hating something; it's actually putting it less. So if you don't love your father and your mother and people less than you love God, then that's what he's. You've got to you've got to put God first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that kind of phrase, hate, I mean, is interesting. It means to love less, and you sort of bring that into our love for God. We need to love him beyond everything, and that's what this is saying. So yeah, thank you for that, David. Right.
Leslie's not very well today, so she's just wanting a COVID test just to check.
Oh no.
So I don't think I haven't got it. So.
Yeah.
My son-in-law's got it. He's been ill for 4 days with a really high temperature. But I put it on another prayer group, so hopefully.
I didn't mean to divert from the word.
Yeah.
No, it's not the word, is it? It's a fellow Christian. We're just sharing about my fellow member of the family. That's all.
Yeah. So our love for others,
Not anything bad.
our love for others here is, it's saying our love for God needs to be more than our love for others. But from our love for God, our love for others flows.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, actually go together. And actually, so this passage is saying, actually, unless your love for God is more than your love for anything else, you cannot be my disciples. But if you do love me like that, my love for you will flow through you to others, is what you find in other passages as well. So like, especially like John 15, which we've touched on a number of times. But passages like that, the flow of God's love through us affects the world. It affects everything around us. But it's got to be intensely there for him first. It's not, like our English word for love. I love chocolate. I love the dog. I love my wife. I love, we've just got this word love we shove into everything that actually doesn't mean that all those things are on the same level. But actually in our English, in our language, they can appear on the same level to someone trying to learn our language. and so how do we express something more affectionate than that? How do we have, but in this, what Jesus is saying, unless your love for God is tops, everything else doesn't work. And actually you can't be my disciple. Our love for him needs to be the deepest, strongest motivator in us. And he moves on our hearts and transforms our hearts, takes away our hearts of stone, gives us a heart of flesh, actually transforms our hearts, so our love for him can be there in the center of everything we do. And I think that's so important. And I think for discipleship, very often a lot of discipleship programs have been far more fixed on external compliance sometimes than internal love. And I think that love for God is something that each disciple of his needs, and we all need to be disciples because none of us is Christ-like enough yet. So there's that sense of we're all on a journey of discipleship, and our love for God needs to be the primary driver in that. And I think that's so powerful. Carolyn, your hand's just gone up. I can't sing to you, but you might be muted. There, go for it.
What's external compliance?
You've got to look to be seen to be doing the right thing, kind of thing, is external compliance. Like, for example, you mustn't go down to that pub or whatever, or that neighborhood or whatever, because it wouldn't look good if you were in that place. And so people don't go there, but actually behind the scenes, they haven't really learnt the lesson of why or the thoughts behind or any of those things. So they just externally comply because they don't want to be seen to be doing that, but actually in their hearts they're in a different place. And that happens sometimes. And so it's actually working on the heart. That's the key. Yeah.
We'll pray at the end. Is it all right? I feel it in my heart to pray for my son-in-law.
Yeah, certainly will. We'll spend some time doing that and praying for Leslie as well. David?
Yeah, it's just my thinking on this, putting God first. I think sometimes it's very easy to put ourselves first and then God comes second, and also becoming codependent on others for our self-esteem. Whereas actually we get who we are from who we are in Christ and who we are, God, what God's done for us. Yeah. And it was just, I was sort of contemplating on that previous passage, the feast, where he's inviting everybody that he knows, but they all come up with excuses. It's like the Pharisees or the Jewish nation refused to accept Christ as the Messiah, and that they are the people who made excuses that they had to keep to the law and everything else. So it then went out into the to the Gentiles. I can sort of talk about this a bit more, but that's just the crux of it. And it's likewise here. it's actually, you've got to put God first in everything that you think of and everything that you do, in order to understand who you actually are, what he's actually done, and how you are now a new creation. I don't know whether you were here, Nigel, before, but I was reading that when I first became a Christian, that song, "I Am a New Creation," was the one that was top of the pops in the churches. But it's I was reading it the other day, and it really means so much more now to me. A realization of who we really are, and it's just sort of he's just soaking that into me. And if we don't put him first, getting back to this passage, we cannot see the reality. We can't see ourselves through his eyes. Yeah. And he sees us as he sees Christ, because Christ has done everything for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that and the other one that used to go with that one, I am a new creation, was I'm forgiven.
Yeah.
That was really powerful as well. I think absolutely great. Although some of our youth used to sing I'm a given, but that wasn't a good thing. Jenny?
No, I was just thinking, it says, you've got to love God more than your father, your mother, your wife, children, and even your own life, and because sometimes we want our own life, don't we? I want to do what I want to do, like obviously already been said, really.
Yeah.
And it's loving God first and sort of carrying your cross. I'm trying to, obviously doing whatever God wants you to do, even though it might hurt, it might be difficult. It's obviously putting him first, and if you love him that much, you can do it. But sometimes you take our eyes off what he's doing and who he is, and it's remembering who you are in him as well. But not loving our own, wanting to live a comfortable life, I suppose. You all want to live a comfortable life, really, but it doesn't work like that, because sometimes you go through difficult times, and it's loving him first.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, and I think for us the big struggle is always. I think you're absolutely right. Was your hand still up, Jenny? Have you finished?
No.
Sorry. No.
Oh, I've stuck it out. Sorry.
I just wondered. Oh, have I cut Jenny off? I don't want to do that. But basically, what you're saying is we struggle with the egocentric phase.
Mm.
So in child development and so on, a child can only think me, I, and so on, and then they move beyond that and begin thinking of others and working through in how they can understand how others feel and empathize more and work through that. And we almost get stuck in a spiritual egocentric phase where it's all me, what I think. And actually it needs to be a God-centric thought process, and out of that flows our love for everyone else, and even our love for ourselves flows from that, because I think some people struggle with loving themselves, and Laura's sermon really went for that on Sunday. Her preach was brilliant on that, but there's some of that which actually challenges that, I think some of the things. I think there's a book written on a different subject, but called The War of Loves. And actually, sometimes internally, there's this war of loves. Me. Oh God. Oh so and so. Oh, and there's that going on. And actually, if we get it in the right order, our love for God first, that flows into our love for ourselves, love for others, love, into for strangers we've never even met, and as a church we've been praying for people throughout COVID, especially intensely when we were in lockdown, praying for people that we'd never met. We ended up praying for people in their beds in South Africa on phones, on Zoom calls, doing things like that. Praying for some of the injustices in the healthcare systems in other nations. And that comes from a love for God. It comes from that putting him first. And that. So thank you, Jenny. That's really good. David?
Yeah, I was just thinking that sometimes this love for God can actually you get to a place. Well, I'll just relate a bit of testimony here. I got to a place where I was actually doing a ministry that I loved. I really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It was I was so enthusiastic about it. But I got to the point where I had to make a decision of either staying in that ministry or moving to where God was pushing me. and in order to, they were both good things to do for God. But it came down to the relationship with him that allowed me to hear his voice.
Yeah.
And allowed me to hear him point me away from the one that I was so enjoying. And it's not that he doesn't want you to enjoy it, but he had other things for me, and so I had to divert from that. And it was wonderful. I was greatly honoured in that. And I've got to admit, it was a little bit of, yes, I enjoy this because it's good. I'm getting a bit of accusation and things. But the love for God is really, it's got to be that decision, that agape love for God. That's not just an emotional thing, but it's actually a decision that you make. And that decision means that you actually develop that relationship with him as well, so that you can actually hear his voice and do his will.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's spot on and a great illustration of that. Let me just ask you a question. Have you had joy since?
Oh, yeah.
So the joy you had of having that, and you really enjoyed it, you've had enjoyment since, because your journey with God. Yeah.
Yeah, I am blessed, highly favoured, and deeply loved.
Yeah, but I think that's important to stay, because I think sometimes people think, oh, I left this that I really enjoyed and followed God instead. But actually, when we do follow him, that joy follows us.
And it's not an excuse. If you say, oh, well, I followed God and I got into real trouble, then maybe you didn't follow God. You can. I mean, and this whole business you've mentioned, it's even your own life. You put God first.
Yeah.
And in the, I mean, you hear the stories of them in the Roman times where the Christians actually ran into the arena to give their lives for God. And all the people who got martyred and are still being martyred for Christ.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that place yet where I've had to make the decision about my life as well.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that I could. I would put that God first in that.
Yeah, and I think the tremendous example of Stephen as well, when he gave up his life, his face lit up like an angel's. And you're thinking, but he's laying down his life,
I think God gives you the power to do it. He gives you the strength, and the joy of the Lord is our strength, isn't it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thanks, David. I think the discipleship, and what Jesus is saying about discipleship here is so crucial, because it's something real. It's not an add-on. It's not a course. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think too often it's been sold as a 10-week course, but actually it's a lifestyle, and actually it requires our whole lives. And I think that's what Jesus is saying. And the banquet guys, just going back to what we looked at yesterday, oh, I can't be bothered with this interrupting my normal life. I've got to go and marry a wife, so I've got to get that right. and I've got to go and try out my oxen, which I've already bought and tested and taken a test drive out in the oxen, and they seemed pretty good, but I haven't really worked them. I'd like to give it another little go. And that field I bought that I looked at so carefully before I bought it and haggled over the price. Actually, I just want to go and plant some seed, really, man. I don't really want to come to your thing. I just think, it's that ordinary life that Jesus is challenging. He's challenging, do you love me more than your ordinary life? Are you prepared to interrupt your day to day in order to let me move in power?
Yeah. You can also get blinkered into your life,
Yeah.
and you're doing things out of rote because that's what you've always done.
Yeah.
And sometimes God calls you to break out from off the rails, if you like, of your normal life, to break off the rails, break away from the security that you've enveloped yourself in, and go into His security, which in normal circumstances can be seen as being radical. I mean, what's the name? Who went to Hong Kong?
Jacky Pullinger. Yeah.
Jacky Pullinger, who went to Hong Kong. She just set off with nothing really, didn't I? I don't think she really knew where she was actually going, but when she got there, she knew it.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about that is also how many people followed her. So once the story in the book did the rounds, people were flying from all over the world to go and join her ministry. And there's some folks who were up in Bedford, a couple who now in London, they met at Jacky Pullinger's ministry. Two young people coming from different places met up and actually fell in love and married and all that. And so you hear that there were people running to join something like that, because when someone lays down their life, when someone is passionate about something, believes in something, it is a powerful dynamic.
She was an amazing lady. Well, she is an amazing lady. She came to Clean Slate, you know, in Milton Keynes when we were there.
Wow.
And she insisted that we didn't advertise the fact that she was there. She didn't want the church leaders to come along. She wanted to talk to the people who we were reaching out to, the lost and the people at the out in the highways and byways. And she was so good, and she was challenged really hard by these people who were drug addicts and things. But I was so impressed. With not you know, when I say so impressed, I'm so impressed how she relies totally on God.
Yeah. And I think we can look at that and go, oh well, that was great for her. That was what God asked her to do. That's all fine. We can shrug it all off and get on with our ordinary lives. And it's the special people that do those things. The people that write books. The people that do those things. And actually what we miss is God has that for every single one of us.
That's right.
In different ways. And
you don't have to be a highly visible minister to actually satisfy God's purpose for you.
Yeah. And I think heaven will be full of people highly honoured who we don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
And
they won't necessarily have mitres on their heads.
but I think there is some of that. God misses nothing, and He sees it all, and He sees a cup of water offered in His name. You know, that's the kind of level. But it's what He calls from us, and I think this discipleship and the heartbeat of it is this absolute devotion to Him above all other devotions, that love for Him beyond all other loves. And I think this is, you know, especially tough when some of the loves that are on our heart lead us in a direction away from God, and we actually have to make decisions about that. And that can be very, very tough. And I think for me, I'm growing in compassion for people like that. When you realize some people who are in this present time giving up their other loves to follow their love for God. And that's something of honor. That's something that God doesn't miss. But it's something we, in our simplicity, go, oh, of course you could do. but it's because we don't love what they love. But when they let go of what they love to follow God, we need to be similarly challenged. Are we in this place where we have that much love for God that all other loves look like hatred in comparison to that? You know, are we in that place of love with Him, and actually His love is towards us in that way? All we have to do is respond to it and go, yeah, Lord, I want to know more about your love. And when we look at passages which we often quote, like Ephesians 3, it tells us wide, how deep, how expansive is the love of God, and how we need the power of the Holy Spirit to even begin understanding it. And there's just revelation and revelation and revelation. And so when we come to God, there is an exploration that is better than any discovery of Everest and climbing Everest, any adventure you can imagine on earth. Far beyond that, far beyond Star Trek, all the adventures into space, far beyond all of that is this exploration of the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. And actually knowing that love and being known by that love and letting that love pour through us is the biggest adventure there is. And it doesn't matter whether we go to Africa when God sends us, or we stay in Bedfordshire loving our neighbour as we love ourselves. It doesn't matter. The adventure into God is the same. And his desire for us to experience that is strong enough. And the strong words of Jesus here, unless you love me, so that the love for me makes everything else look like hatred.
It's a bit. I've probably told you this before, but I can remember sort of saying, giving up everything and saying, "Okay, God, what do you want me to do?" And I had visions of sort of waving palm trees and sun-drenched beaches in the South Pacific or something. He said, "Get to know who I am." I said, "Yes, but what do you want me to do?" He said, "Get to know who I am." And it's so true. It's by getting to know who he is, you develop that love, and that love can come through.
When I went to Australia, I felt to the Sunshine Coast. It's one of the most beautiful areas. It's so beautiful, right? But someone sent me, how do you understand a call from God to the Sunshine Coast? I always thought God would call you to Calcutta, to the mess and all of that. Why would he call you to the Sunshine Coast with the nicest beaches I've ever seen? Just beautiful sand that squeaks when you walk on it. That kind of thing. How do you know that's God? But God called us there. And someone sent me a cartoon of this guy lying on the beach with a little sign stuck in the sand that said "Repent." That's how they saw my ministry in Australia.
The challenge comes when he calls you to go away from there.
Oh no! That was a challenge, but God spoke to us about that and looked after every detail. We gave away
Sunshine Coast to Dunstable.
Oh no, we went somewhere first, and the sunny place called Croydon, which was I'm not going to liken to Calcutta, but it wasn't Croydon.
Croydon's all right. I used to work there.
Yeah, I know. Croydon's a great place. What I'm saying is God looked after every detail.
Yeah.
We had bought second-hand furniture and all these things in Australia, and we just felt this prompting to give things away when we left. I mean, really, it wasn't giving away that much. It was a few hundred Aussie dollars, and there were 3 Aussie dollars to a pound. By the time we got it back here, it would have been nothing. And so we gave it away to young people who didn't have stuff. And our car was broken down and was probably headed for the scrap heap, but we could have made a couple of hundred on trading it in or whatever it was, and we just said no, we'll just get rid of it. And someone said, "Can I have your car for single moms? I do up cars for single moms." And so we just gave him the car. He said, "Well, I'll give you 100 for it." No, have it, give it to the single moms. And so he went and did our car up, and it had another life beyond what we thought it could do. And actually, when we arrived in England, we got given a car, we got given a fridge, we got given a couch. Nearly every item we'd given away, people gave to us when we set up home. And it was just such a blessing. And so God looked after our move to Bracknell and all those things that we went to do, because it's an adventure. But it is risky, and it is hard when you've got nothing in front of you and you don't know how it's going to open up. But God does all those things, and I think it comes from this walking in love with him. And so let's dive back to the passage a little bit, because there's some other harsh things in this as well. We've tackled the hatred for other things, but the bearing your cross and come after me cannot be my disciple is one of the phrases here. and another one, he goes into building towers and fighting battles, but at that sense of, unless you first pick up his cross and follow me, bear his own cross and come after me, cannot be my disciple. And I think that's a powerful statement. I don't know if anyone's got anything they'd like to say on that.
That's tough. That's tough.
It is. Yeah, go on, Liz.
When you
Jenny.
become a Christian,
Yeah.
when you it's not always easy, because relatives don't understand, if people think you've gone crazy or something. There's always a cost, isn't there? I think that's probably what it means, that whatever comes against you, you have to follow him. No matter what people say, if you're ridiculed, or if you're lose friends and things like that. And that's because when Jesus went to the cross, everyone abandoned him, didn't they?
Yeah.
And obviously they reconciled, but and everyone was jeering at him, that were not long before have been saying Hosanna in the highest,
Yeah.
and it was awful. So I think that's probably what it means, if you're not prepared for that, if you don't love God enough to be able to do that, and keep following him, no matter what comes against you, really, people and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I suppose really, also going on to the bit with the tower, sometimes it's good to think, well, it might cost me this, but some people just jump into things and then don't follow on because it's too hard. But if they know it's going to cost them before, maybe they're prepared and they make that decision, they're more likely to stay. Maybe, I don't know, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
If you love God, you just do it, don't you? Because it's follow him wherever he goes, where he leads you.
Yeah.
I think it takes time to love. I think, because you want to be saved and the Holy Spirit calls you, but I think to love God, I think, is something that you have to love someone that and that you're thankful to, and to actually love is love is a relationship, isn't it? And you have to learn how to do that, I think. And sometimes it's difficult, depending on what level you're at, or where you're at with stuff, whatever reason, anyway.
Yeah, I think there's always a wrestle in things, and I think Will Smith, before he slapped people, had a statement he did on one of the things I saw, basically saying, no, it wasn't him, it was Keanu Reeves. Sorry, I've got the wrong person. I didn't need to bring up that. Sorry. But basically Keanu Reeves said in an interview, someone said, well, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And he said, no, if you're a lover, you've got to be a fighter. You've got to fight for what's right. And you've got to pursue that. You can't just be passive. And I think there's something in that, in our love for God. We can't be passive. It needs to be active. And I think that's really important. There's something to fight for. And I think that's part of what you're expressing there, Carolyn. I've got David's hand and then Jenny's.
I think Jenny's hand went up as Carolyn was speaking, so I'll
go for it, Jenny.
I'll go
I
for
was just
Jenny.
saying, Carol, you said you can't, what was it you said? Trying to remember now. You can't, love is a relation, you have to have a relationship to love. But I don't always agree with that, because you can love like somebody on the street who's begging by giving them what they, love them and have compassion for them. But you don't actually know them, do you? So I think when you follow Jesus, you don't know him straight away, not that much. Well, I did a bit, because I it's a bit different because I sort of always loved him anyway. But you know what I mean? I think, you know, yes, God brings us into a relationship, but, you know, you have to develop that relationship. But loving is knowing that the right thing to do. You know that God loves you or is drawing you, and you jump in because you think it's more important to follow him than go your own way. So, sorry, that's what I was trying to say anyway. I can't express it very well.
May I just add to what Jenny is saying?
Yeah.
The problem with the English language, say love, it doesn't cover what it would do in Greek. In Greek, there's different loves. There's the love of a brotherly love. There's a love of your partner, your wife or your husband. And also there's the agape love, which is a decision to love, which is what Jenny's saying there. Yeah. You decide to love. It's focused. It's what the Spirit is giving you, and it's completely different. I just on the cross bit, I just picked out a comment from my commentary here, which says, "The cross was what Jesus died on. It was painful and something he didn't choose for himself. Our cross is anything the Lord asks us to do that isn't our first choice. We have to die to our own thinking and desires and submit ourselves to his will. Anyone who isn't willing to do this isn't a true disciple of Jesus." So, sorry, no, I didn't see my note and look. You don't need to look for that. It's so true, isn't it? That actually, if you make a decision to love somebody, you follow a route that God's actually given you, this agape love, that may not be the route that you desire in your flesh.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. You've just got to say, I am going to follow. What did we say the other day? No turning back, no turning back. I'm going to follow Jesus. There's no turning back, no turning back. So you make that decision, and you don't take any notice of these thoughts and whims that say, "Oh, I don't really want to do that."
Yeah.
Someone once used to say to me, when I used to groan and moan, he said, "Take your thumb out of your mouth and grow up. You know what God wants."
Yeah. You go on, Jenny.
I think it's a decision. I mean, it's like a marriage, isn't it? You don't really know a person you're married to until you're married, I don't think. Not completely. You get to know them more then. And then, you know, even when things are difficult, because you made that decision and said before God, you carry on with it, or we should carry on with it. I mean, our circumstances, like someone's been like abused really badly and bashed up or something all the time, I suppose that's a bit different. But, you know, I think, you know, making a decision, saying yes to God, is these days people don't keep their word, do they? That's the trouble. I mean, you know, years ago it used to be your word is your bond, which is in the Bible, I think. Yeah. Your word is your bond, and you keep what you say no matter what, even if it's difficult. And I think really it's the same thing in a marriage, because in a way Jesus is our bridegroom, and I think it's saying, yes, I've chosen to follow you. No matter how difficult it is, I'm still going to do it, even at what I feel like or what, you know, whatever's coming against me. And that is love, really, isn't it? Because you just keep on persevering because you know Jesus loves ours. I mean, God loves ours, doesn't he? So, but you know, even in a marriage, you might be in a marriage that's not loving, you know. But if you made that decision, you know, it's you know, God will help you anyway. But I don't know why I'm saying this, but anyway, but it's like, I think now, today, people take things lightly. They don't keep to what they say so much. It's anything goes, or change your mind, I won't do that now. You know, instead of keeping to say, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. You know, and your word is your bond.
Yeah. And I think it's very difficult to keep going without that primary love for God.
Yes.
I think actually that sustains us through a lot.
Oh yeah.
And actually the you know, I think a lot of the other love wanes because of not being refreshed. And I think there's this kind of assumption brought by Disney and others. That they fell in love and they lived happily ever, and all the fairy tale ending, and it was this little sparkle in the eye, and that little sparkle in the eye lasted for the next 50 years, and you sort of think, no, I think marriage is a bit tougher than that. I'm not saying anything about anything by saying that. I just know it is, and actually, there is working through stuff, and there is things to work through. But the love of God flowing through our hearts actually helps all those other loves fall in place.
Yes,
and it's where we sometimes make our love greater than God in some areas, the real trouble begins to kick in. And I think we begin to get things out of priority, and we begin to build around other things, and that's where the trouble really begins. Because we begin to expect something like a job to give us the joy we should get. We expect something else, like that we think is trite, and I expect this to give me all the joy in my life. Now I've got my new Apple Watch, I expect joy to be all over my life. And actually 10 minutes in, and you realize your Apple Watch doesn't quite connect to the internet the way you wanted it to, and you have to buy extra stuff to make it all work, and oh no, I never knew all this, and suddenly your love for your Apple Watch that was supposed to give you all this joy doesn't, but actually it's only when our joy is in the Lord, and actually we build around that love, that flows into all the other things. We're suddenly not thinking, hey, I need an Apple Watch to make me happy. We're actually saying, actually, I just need Jesus to make me happy. And actually, beyond that, I just walk through following him day by day, and everything else flows into place. And I think that's so important. So looking at the building a tower, I think Jenny touched on this with marriage. You look and you think, right, I'm going to pay the cost of this regard. I'm going through this. I'm not going to have a half-built tower here. We're going for it. But into battle, actually, when you see, I was going to go and fight this guy, but I've actually noticed he's got a bigger army than me. Actually, maybe I should reconsider before I go. There's actually some of that counting the cost that we need to do. And there is a cost to following Jesus. It means that we need that love for God beyond all other loves, and actually that perspective makes it very, very difficult when we're in situations that demand a different love or a different allegiance to that, and I think that's where we get into some of the difficulties. So I just don't know if that's a helpful thing to raise.
Not to me.
It's not helpful to you, Carolyn, sorry?
Well, I think it's right what you're saying, but it's not helpful. Yeah. So it just I think it just compounds a lot of struggles. I think that's all. But it's not what you said is it's not wrong or anything like that. You know what I mean? So that's just me anyway.
Okay, so you're saying it's right but not helpful.
Yeah, I think it's really, really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't saying it was easy. I'd agree it is tough.
Yeah.
And I think
it's so tough to get through.
Yeah.
To get up, really. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's probably God's grace that does that for you in the morning. So.
Yeah. Every morning, whether we, you look out today and you think snow. Oh. I was planning on going sunbathing today, and it's not going to happen. I think life's got a lot of things, but actually, there's stuff that walking with God is a permanent adventure, and it's just walking into every day with Him. I think is absolutely key to our enjoyment of things. David, totally understand you needing to go. Give our love to Leslie. We'll pray for her afterwards.
Yeah.
God bless.
God bless.
I just remind you of Winston Churchill's speech to the Oxford Union after the war, where he spoke to all the people who just graduated, and he just used 3 words for about 5 minutes: never give up.
and just said it over and over and over again.
That's right, yeah. Never give up.
That's right.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, David. Right, so let's have a look, see how much of this passage we've got to go. We've got the saltiness to go on. So therefore, if any one of you who does not, verse 33, if there is any one of you who does not renounce all he has, he cannot be my disciple. And so there's that. Actually, this comes to saying, actually, Lord, you are Lord of all.
Yeah.
And actually, all other things fall behind that. And that is key. So, I think that's very important. So, yeah. And I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that when we notice other things coming up that are getting more affection in our hearts than him, and we've just got to go, yeah, Lord, my love for you is greatest, and Lord, I'll put that love behind my love for you. And I think sometimes doing that is a helpful exercise every now and then. Actually look, what other things are becoming more important to me than God?
Yeah.
Actually, I need to look at that. Are my thought processes and things that I'm actually trusting and believing, are they actually true? Are they coming from him? Those are good things to ask. I think, and just do a kind of gardening, do a little bit of weeding around the garden of our hearts, and actually have a look at what's going on there. Sometimes I think is really important. But yeah, so moving on to verse 34 to verse 35. I don't know if anyone's got anything to say on that. I'll read the bit out from the notes here, and I'll put it in the chat as well. But I think it's a bit helpful because sodium chloride is sodium chloride. But actually, if you look at this, it's saying most salt from the Dead Sea contained impurities, carnalite and gypsum. If not processed properly, it would have poor taste and be worse than useless, being unusable for food, and create a disposal problem. If the conditions of discipleship are not kept, the disciples likewise will become less than worthless. And so what they're saying here is Jesus was using an example of a type of salt in that area that had impurities in it, and although it was salt, it was unusable. And so he's saying, actually, our discipleship is less than worthless if it's not full on.
Well, that's hard to come to terms with as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So hopefully, if mine's not full on at the moment, I hope it doesn't mean that it's worthless. I really hope it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think any moving forward.
He died for me, so hopefully.
But what I'd say is, someone said to me, when you keep balance, right, in your life, we think of it as, okay, I'm balanced, I'm standing still. But actually, if you try and balance on a tightrope, your legs are always adjusting. You're wobbling your legs back and forth, but you are balancing, and you are staying there. It is sometimes hard work to stay in one place.
Yeah.
And actually, you need to be constantly adjusting. I think sometimes, Carolyn, we can feel like we're battling every day. We can feel like it's such a struggle. But actually, the reason we're struggling is because our hearts are for God. And God sees that. And I think that's important as well. It doesn't always feel nice at the time of some of these struggles, but it actually shows our heart. and the fact that we get up every day and push through and think, I don't know how I'm going to make it today, I need some prayer, let's get going, and all those kind of things, that shows you've got a heart to move forward. It's a very good thing. And so you should be encouraged by that, and so I think with this, it's a kind of that saltiness needs to keep working, and while you're fighting stuff, that saltiness is working, and even if you lose a battle here or there, that saltiness is still working, and I think that's really important. There was something said in our house the other day by Hannah, goes, "Oh, that's a bit salty," and I thought, "Oh, I didn't know that had become a trendy phrase."
Who was that? Was that Hannah?
That was Hannah.
Yes. Oh, that was funny.
Because salt actually hurts, doesn't it? If you put it on a wound.
Yeah.
Or
Ooh,
something.
it's a bit salty.
Oh, you know what? It's never. It's great. This passage is just what I need to listen to, really. So I'm listening, but I'm not involved with myself. But yeah, so true. God's so good. I mean, it's not going to be. It's painful. It's not easy, is it? It's just so painful. But because we love Jesus so much, that's why it's painful.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't painful, then we'd be proud and we'd be. Like, we can do it, but it is painful going through stuff that you're battling with all the time, and it does change. The battles change, but that's change. And then I suppose God never changes, and He never moves, but we do, and that's the trouble. We're always moving, we're always changing, like you said, Nigel. I think we always got it's different every day. So what you're battling with one day may not be what you're battling the next day, and it's just it's so. It's what I need to listen to. I know, Carolyn's battling as well, and everyone's battling. But
I think we all are.
I think we're all battling with something at the moment. But
I'm just thinking, if the salt is that salt in the Dead Sea had impurities in it, it's like if our lives, we let sin in our lives, and it becomes sort of, we don't get rid of it, then that's obviously what He means. Then, really, isn't it? It loses its saltiness. But salt, cleanses as well, doesn't it? So I don't know. I've always heard this passage about talking about it being cleansing, and also being like, sometimes people speak something into your life and you may not like it, but it's like salt that would sting you, really. But it puts a different perspective on it, doesn't it? If it's salt from the Dead Sea that's got impurities in it. So, I mean, we can't live without salt either, can we? Because we have to have so much salt in our body.
Well, yeah.
And it was really expensive, wasn't it, in those days, salt?
Yeah, but you can imagine, the Trotters of biblical times, in their yellow van from Peckham High Street. Going down to the Dead Sea and filling their van with a whole load of rock salt from this place. Looks the same. Should pass it off. And then going to the market and going, hey, look, we've got cheap salt and we've got all these varieties of salt, and people going, oh, take it home, and going, this is worthless. I can't even throw this on the manure heap because it'll damage the land and cause a whole load of problems. What on earth am I going to do with this, And so I think that happened. I think that, the Trotters of this world have been everywhere and are everywhere. They are in every level of society. But actually that kind of viewpoint, I think, is interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. This little yellow van working its way down to the Dead Sea, and
they used to call Steve used to go into the market stall sometimes and do Del Boy. I mean, they used to call him Del Boy, the stuff we used to sell. So it just reminded me. I better not do it on Facebook. But anyway, but that is it. It's the second-hand stuff, isn't it? It's second-hand things that don't really make up until you find Jesus, and then that's the true thing, the true love. But you have to keep it close to us, though. That's the trouble with God's love. It's all about God's love, isn't it? It's knowing that we're loved. That is the most powerful thing.
And I think it was a guy who said, right, he had a glass and filled it up with water, and said, this is like, worry or something like that. and you carry it, and he said, "Is this heavy?" And everyone goes, "No, no, no." Carry it for an hour. Is it heavy? No, no, it's okay. Carry it for a day, and this starts to be a heavy weight.
Yeah.
And actually carry it for a couple of days, it's a massively heavy weight. And
carry it for 18 months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's a heavy weight, and so in terms of some of these things, actually recognizing this this thought I've got actually is something I need to put down, because actually but it doesn't seem much at first, but actually I think this love for God actually over a long period of time can feel quite heavy, because it confronts all our other loves. It confronts all the other things that are precious to us, and at some point we think, oh, what do we do with this? And I think when we did the grief course as a church a couple of times, there were people who, in the pain of what they were in, trying to find comfort in other things like drugs or alcohol or other things to try and try and meet the pain, or try and comfort the pain, or lessen the pain, or try and find other things. And I think in some ways we're all a bit like that when we're uncomfortable. And our love for God, when it gets uncomfortable, we mustn't try and draw other comforts in. Maybe if I revamped the whole house, I'd feel better, And then but actually what we're really looking for is comfort for something inside. And I think in our love for God and our walking through things with God, we've got to watch for those other things we put our love in that become comforts that we replace with Him.
Yeah, that's true.
And that puts the order of loves into our lives. It's a love for God first, and then everything else flows from it.
Flows through it. Yeah, that's so true, Nigel. Not easy to do, but it's true. But it's got to be our foremost thing. It should be. Yeah, and sometimes if things are going well, and everything's sometimes good, and then sometimes it's not. It's not so good. But that doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. That's just us. That's just us. That's so good. I love the water. I'm going to remember the water. Put it down. Gets too heavy. Overtakes you.
Right.
I definitely, Right. Going offline.
Okay. See you, Carolyn. We're about to go, but thanks everybody for your contributions this morning. It's been absolutely great. It looks like we've looked at one of the toughest passages about disciples picking up their crosses, about having such a love for God that all our other loves look like hatred. Making sure that we keep that saltiness of the Spirit with us in everything, and not letting other things get in there. And all of those things, we've looked at a passage like that, and all it's been is a discovery of the love of God, and I think that's been great. So I'll move us offline now. There we go.
Are you on?